Hi, come on in.
And join in. It's the Very Merry Life. Hi, I'm Mary Hendricks, and you might know me as that relatable AF Mama over on Instagram who hopefully feels like an old friend at this point. And if not, it won't be long till it feels that way as we get raw, unfiltered, and very unapologetic in all things motherhood, marriage, sex, and more. From moments worth savoring to moments worth surviving, get ready to leave feeling seen and supported. You have a friend here now, so hey, take a seat. What's going on? Hi. Okay. I'm so excited. This has been something that we've been trying to get together and do for a while now. We just have motherhood and life and figuring all of that out. And especially at night when we're dealing with baby sleep, which is what we're going to talk about today. It's just interesting.
Complicated.
Yeah. But I have Molly with me. What's your last name?
Layton.
Layton. It's right at the bottom of the screen. I should say that. Okay. Molly Layton with me. There we go. From Sleep Short. And I've been connected with Molly on Instagram for a while now. And I've shared her on my Instagram and things like that. And we are going to, for Taboo Tuesday, talk about sleep training because it's interesting. But before we get into that, I want you to introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. I'm Molly Layton. I am the owner of Sleep Shore Sleep Consulting. I'm a mom to two. I have a 4.5-year-old and a 4.5-month-old. I got my sleep certification because my oldest was a horrible sleeper, and I also knew nothing. Like, everyone was very concerned with like all the different products I needed when I was pregnant and like stroller, car seat, like all the cute outfits, but no one ever said to me, like, have you taken a like newborn care course or a sleep course or gifted me anything like that or gave me any good info on sleep? And I knew nothing. So when my son was about 5 months old, and I was done. Like, I was up every 2 hours. I was nursing. I didn't know what to do. I was using all the wrong, unsafe products. I reached out for help, and a friend of mine recommended a sleep consultant, and I used her, and I basically just went to her like so desperate. I was like, I will pay you. I will pay you whatever you want. Tell me what to do. Get this kid sleeping. And she did within 2 weeks. And I helped him learn how to sleep. I didn't lock him in a room and shut the door and not go back in. He started sleeping through the night 2 weeks later. And he's honestly like, he's 4.5. So he has his, toddler excuses and all that kind of stuff, but he's a really good sleeper. And I just became really passionate about the topic of pediatric sleep, but also helping moms and parents understand what sleep training is, what it isn't, how you can do it in a way that you feel comfortable and that works best for mom, parent, and baby, and child, and helping people get sleep, because it is such a massive component to postpartum, to overall health and wellness, to just happiness and health. So I've been sleep coaching for about 3.5 years. And I live in Massachusetts, and I think that's pretty much it.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And so sleep training, oh gosh. Well, and I think I don't know how we got connected, but I know I definitely have tapped and brought you up and such like that, because sleep training is one of those areas, especially on social media, that I tread I don't tread lightly because I've shared it, but it's one of those areas that anytime you bring it up, oh God, the response, that is one of the most triggering conversation starters is sleep training. And I don't really understand why. And when you say sleep training to some people, it just, and I always say that when some people are like, do sleep train? And I'll be like, yes. But when you say sleep train, what do you think sleep training is?
Exactly.
Because I think people have a weird idea as to, most people, from my opinion, have an idea that sleep training is the cry it out method.
Yes.
And the cry it out method, from what I think most people understand it to be, is they get this idea that it is taking your baby when you're ready for them to go to bed, putting them in a room, closing the door, like you said, turning off the lights, saying goodnight, not walking back in, and letting them be for the rest of the night.
Yeah. 1,000%. 1,000%. There is such a misconception about sleep training. And the term, I don't know if it's the term or if it's just like the connotation with the term. There's a lot of misconception about that sleep and independent sleep is a skill that is taught. That's like one of the big kind of like triggering points or just misconceptions. And then the other, to your point, is crying it out. Certain people think, and most people think cry it out is extinction, which is putting baby in room, shutting the door, not coming back in until morning, which is a sleep training method. And we can certainly talk about methods. But there are so many other parts to sleep training aside from like the method that you use. There are so many other components to it that help make your child learn to sleep and sleep better. So it's a controversial topic. The other part,
and I never knew it was. That was the thing. Like when I had, let me make sure my story uploaded. Okay, when I had Cassidy, again, like you said, no one ever talks about that. Like, which blows my mind actually because of how crucial sleep is. I'm shocked that people don't say it more. Like, I know the pediatrician brings it up a little bit. And you know what's funny with the pediatrician is like if you say like, yeah, they cry, for pediatricians like
fine, good, no worries, yeah,
great, yeah, which I love personally. I love that. But the pediatrician's really the only one. But I feel like in the hospital, when you leave the hospital, like that should be something that they like go through with you. Like, hey, these are they go through like the safe practices, like alone back, whatever,
on their back,
safe sleep, whatever, Like that's all cool. I know that's even a touchy subject for some people who are big into co-sleeping. And again, I'm going to say this and because I'm like I don't care. Like I'm one of those people that if you tell me you co-sleep, great, fine, awesome. I don't. I personally do not feel comfortable with it. I'm way too nervous. If you've been doing it and you feel fine doing it, then good for you. But also I hope you know the risks.
Right.
That's all I can say. And no different than, anything else, anything that you decide to do. I think we all should, no matter what choice we make, should be informed about the choice that we make. So if that's your choice that you want to make, cool. Yeah. Just hopefully just educate yourself on it as best you can and go from there. But sleep has been something that has been until when you realize you don't have it, that's when you realize how crucial it is in every aspect, in everything. And that's why I've talked about it because I shared my story with Haley, I think around 5 months.
Yeah.
I shared like an actual day in like a night of me just like starting sleep training. And I got, some people got real mad at me on my stories.
They came for you.
They did.
I know. I did it when I sleep trained Maisie. My daughter's now 4.5 months old. Because I do this for a living, I saved it. It's a highlight on my story. I've saved it since she was a baby. And I've heard lots of mixed things. But the one thing that I will share, my experience with her, is that I started what I call like sleep shaping with her much earlier. And so I really never had to get to a point with her where I had to even let her cry for more than 15, 20 minutes. Yeah. Because early on, I watched her wake windows. I made sure she ate really well during the day. I made her sleep environment conducive for sleep. So there are things that parents can do early on. It takes work, but there are things parents can do early on to help shape their baby's sleep so that when they get to an age where they want to start to extend those nighttime stretches or get better naps, it's not this like drastic thing they have to do where, a lot of people think they have to let them cry for hours upon end, which is so not true. The number one question I get from clients is like, what is the longest a baby has cried that you've worked with before they've fallen asleep? And I would say an hour is the longest, which sounds long if you never let your baby cry. Yeah. But if you think about it, like they don't know what they don't know. The way they've gone to sleep for 4, 5, 10 months is what they're used to. You're introducing something new. It's a change. They don't know what to do. They will learn how to fall asleep. And it's taking them 1 hour out of 24 hours to figure out how to do that. So if you think about it that way, it's not that long. But it's hard. It's hard for parents. It's hard. Crying is triggering. And I totally understand that. but babies are very capable of learning new skills when we give them the foundation to do so.
We'll be back after a quick break. Eye-Opening Moments podcasts are real-life stories of adversity, encounters, and perspectives. They are moments that can lift your spirits, give you some food for thought, or move you. For the introspective mind that likes to reflect, discover, and find solutions or meaning in a complex life, listen to Eye-Opening Moments podcasts.
Yeah. Well, and I've always been, so when it comes to sleep training for me, one, I'm not like that great. I think Haley still wakes up. She wakes up funny enough at 10:30, 11 every single night. It is on point. Yeah. She doesn't stop. Like, it's just, she's up and she sits up.
Yeah.
She's just ready to go. And usually it's just, she wants to nurse and then I'll put her back down.
Yeah.
And that might be why.
Maybe.
Is she just, whatever, habit. But she's been pretty good, but the way I've always, same thing. I like that terminology, sleep shaping. Like, I've always been from day one. Like, I remember with Cassidy, again, not knowing anything, but with Cassidy, our first, I remember always noticing that when she was tired, she'd rub her eyes and her face. And then with Kev, I remember telling him, I was like, I'm going to just go put her down. She was like rubbing her face and she fussed a little bit and she's never hardcore cried. Cassidy was my kid that I had to do a little bit of extinction with. Yeah. And I'm always fully open with, because I tried everything. I had a friend that did like a chair method where you sit next to the crib and you move back. Yeah. Did not work. I had a friend that tried every other, like I tried everything because crying's uncomfortable and nothing helped. Like, and now she was one of those kids that if I went back into the room to go and try and comfort her,
it was all over. Yeah.
All over, game over, made it worse.
Yeah.
So it was almost better for me to let her just go.
Yeah. And you tried other things. And that's the thing. I think another misconception is people are like, this is the only way. Like, I have to leave them to cry. There are so many methods. And there's also modifications. So I have families that are like, I want to go in the room, but I like want to pick them up. I don't want to leave them in the crib. So I'm like, okay, so pick them up, like hold them, put them back down. Like, that's not a big deal. But there's, you've tried other things and it didn't work and you knew your baby. You're like, if I go back in, she's not going to fall back to sleep. So you left her. Yeah. So that,
Well, and I always say too, because I once did a video on TikTok and it was like a trend over there. And I forget what song it was, but it was like, name what's one sentence that can start an argument, I think. And I said that crying, I forget what I said. I think crying is okay or something like that, or letting your baby cry is okay. And of course, the
blew up.
People went in. Yeah. And I made a response video and I said, you know what? Crying, especially because I get it. Like, as a parent, crying, no, that's our instinctual call. It's like when our young cries, the motherhood instinct, the parent instinct clicks in that we want to tend to our little ones. Yeah. But as a mom, and now, you're a mom too, as of recent, like, someone is going to be crying and will have to cry while you figure out the other one. Like, there is usually someone crying at every 10 minutes in my household. Like, it's just a thing. And some people get so extreme with this whole cried out method and sleep training. And that's the only thing that ever pops up with that is like the damage that's coming through, and that there's studies about damage and how you're damaging. And I said, enough, because knowing that, like, as a first time mom, like, that used to scare the shit out of me because I would hear this. And then anytime they cry,
You'd freak out.
I would be thinking about like all the crap that was happening to him and how it was my fault. And we have enough to worry about. Like, I do not need to add that to the list. And especially when you have a second and a third, at some point, like, there's only so much you can do. And crying at, is a thing. Yeah. It's just something they do.
Exactly.
If you're forcing them to cry, that's a different thing. Right. If you are just ignoring their needs, their basic needs, if they're hungry, they need a diaper change, things like that, then yes, that's an issue. But sometimes they cry.
Yeah. 100%.
And it's their communication while they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And that's like how the first time I like left Maisie to cry, it wasn't intentional, but my son was in the tub. I was like, she was like 14 weeks old or something. And I was like trying to get her to sleep. She was like, didn't want me to hold her, rock her, or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I'm putting you down. In my head, I was like, I'm giving you 10 minutes. If you are not sleeping after 10 minutes, that's enough time for me to get Bryce out of the tub, get him in pajamas, She cried for like 8 minutes, 10 minutes, and she fell asleep. I was like, okay.
That's how that I swear. I think Haley's been easier with sleep training. We've had to do a little bit, but she's never been like I've probably been the laziest trainer this time because one, I don't know if she's my last baby, and I'm still breastfeeding her and I don't care at this point. So I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
I have boundaries. Like I like to say, it's like I have boundaries. Like I'm willing to go in there, and I usually always pick up my kids when they're fussing. Like there's fussing and then there's crying.
Big difference.
So if they're fussing where they're like, then I let it go.
That's fine.
If they are hardcore, like freaking out, I'm in there and I'm picking them up and I will nurse her, rock her to sleep. I don't really care. It is what it is. I just have boundaries, and like she doesn't come to my bed. Like I just have certain boundaries with me as to what habits can I work and whittle down on. Yeah. So that way eventually she starts sleeping through the night as she gets older. And it's not like I always say this to people when they come and like or ask me on Instagram and things like that is I'm not some expert on any of this. I just know from my personal experience that one, she's third child syndrome. She has to wait sometimes. So she's kind of had to figure out self-soothing on her own. Yeah. But also like it doesn't guarantee, like sleep training also does not guarantee your baby's going to sleep all the time through the night. No. People have crap, like adults have crap nights of sleep. Like it's one of those things. It just helps giving them the tools to hopefully be able to put themselves back down when they don't necessarily need you. No different than how it is when you wake up in the middle of the night.
Exactly. It's teaching your baby to fall or a child to fall asleep on their own so they can fall back to sleep on their own. And if they can't, then you decide as a parent how you're going to respond to them. And that's it. Yeah. And I always tell people, like, I'm like you said earlier, zero judgment. If what's working, if what you are doing is working, continue to do it. If it's not working anymore, then there are options to change it. And that's really it.
Well, and I think that's a big thing too, because sleep is one of those things that I think it's like a myth of motherhood that moms are meant
exhausted. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we are, but I don't think it needs to be because we're necessarily sacrificing sleep. Like, I think we're exhausted because of like the mental strain and the responsibilities, like things like that. Sleep deprivation is one thing that I don't think should be a negotiable for motherhood. I think that's one thing that needs to be something that needs to happen, because I know I'm sure you could, like, I think everyone can relate. If I don't have sleep, I'm not very good. I'm not very good at my job. I don't think anyone's going to be good at their job, but I'm especially not good at my job, which is being a mom. I'm not very happy, and I'm snappy, and I don't handle situations as easily. And you just sleep in general impacts so much more.
It does. And I've said this before, like to other moms that I've talked to, like sleep deprivation, like should not be, or like lack of sleep should not be like a badge of honor. Like it shouldn't be like, oh, I'm so exhausted. I was up 6 times with my baby. Like almost like a like low key competition type thing. Like it should not be like that. To your point, sleep is connected to so many things for us as moms, but also for our babies, like health, like development and growth and memory, and for us, memory loss. And it's just so crucial and so important. And to go back to what you said earlier, like sleep training doesn't guarantee that your baby's going to sleep wonderfully forever. I mean, most of my clients are repeat clients. Like I stay connected with them until their kids are like older, because things impact a lot of the developmental things that happen within the first 2 years with like physical developments, walking, crawling, pulling to stand, rolling over, speech, all of that. It impacts sleep because your brain recovers when you sleep, and it's kind of catching up on all those new developments. And so when a baby and a toddler are learning such major new skills, it can wake them up out of a deep sleep, and they have a hard
Is that what the 10-month sleep regression is? Because that is like and I always said it, Kev, I was like, you can tell because of like what happens overnight. It's pretty, I love this age because it's so freaking cool to see the development happen overnight, because it literally happens overnight. Like you could tell that Haley is looking at something, like right now she's trying to work on pulling herself up.
Oh my God.
She's only done it once and she hasn't done it again, but you can tell that she's like studying it and trying to test it out.
Yeah.
And I forget what it was when she learned how to go from laying down on her belly and sitting up to sitting up that she was up so much that night, because it was like, you could tell that she was practicing it a little bit.
That's what happens.
And it was so funny, but it's pretty cool. And that's where you like notice, like, that's what's happening overnight.
Yeah, that's usually what happens. Cause a lot of times people will be like, my baby was such a great sleeper. And then all of a sudden he or she's waking all night. And I'm like, what are the new skills they're learning? Like, are they learning to roll over? Are they sitting up? Are they pulling to stand?
Clapping. That was Haley's recent one, clapping. Cause she was up and she'd wake up and I would sit with her, and she doesn't want, my kids are not cuddlers. I wish they were. I don't know what's wrong with them, but they do not cuddle.
Yeah.
They don't like to lay, like she will, if she's really tired, she'll lay with her head on my shoulder, like facing towards me. Yeah. But otherwise she wants to be facing out. She wants her back against my chest and facing out. And she was doing that, and she was up at like, I think I had stories, if you saw them like a week or two ago, she was up at like until midnight.
Oh yeah. I saw that.
She'd wake up at like 9:30 and be ready to go. And I finally would bring her downstairs because I was like, screw this, I'm going to go sit downstairs. But she would lay on me and just clap her hands. And I'm like, oh, this is the skill.
Herself. Yep.
Yeah.
And usually like that excitement, usually it like kind of wears off after a couple nights, weeks, whatever. But some babies are like really sensitive to the new skills they're learning. Like, a lot of people ask me like, how long do regressions last? And it's regressions are caused by a new skill they're learning. So when they kind of get used to it and it's not so new anymore and that excitement wears off, it usually stops disrupting their sleep. So it's hard to tell.
Well, and that's when I think, like, for me personally, what I found is routine is like the biggest thing in keeping with all of that, because it's just, for me, we don't do it every night, but usually bath time is like right before bedtime. And that's always been like her key thing, is to letting her know. And it's always kind of been like food, bath, book, bed, like as best as we can. And I feel like that has always just helped us a little bit, because then it just, they know, like at least,
we all thrive off routine, like, and babies especially. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Like another question I get a lot is like, how long does my bedtime routine have to be with my baby? It can be whatever you have time for, basically. But if it's like a sequence of events that are consistent each night, or around like, similar events each night, they will start to understand what comes next. So when like the sleep sack goes on, they know they're going in the crib, and that's huge.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let's go into the controversial portion of Cry It Out method, because I like to go into I want to like pull through like different things that I know people have commented. So I had a reel on Instagram went crazy, and I don't understand why. Honestly, it was me saying that when you realize that you thought your baby slept all night, but it was because you accidentally turned off the monitor.
Nice. I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, based on a true story, I've done that multiple times. Or I'm so tired and I turn off the monitor because it will be on and she'll start crying, and I must do it while I'm like half asleep. And I'll just turn it off.
Yeah. Good night, honey. Yeah.
Good night. Bye.
I love you. Yeah.
Love you. Yeah. She always wakes up happy, so I haven't screwed up yet. But what's funny is like the comments on that are like, oh, they got nuts. And I never even talked about sleep training. Like nothing was ever even mentioned in it, but the comments on it got insane about sleep training. And one of the things, like I always know that the biggest thing that I see about sleep training is that you're teaching your baby not to trust you, that the reason why they stop crying is because they finally have given up and they have no trust in you anymore.
Oh, wow. No.
Yeah.
So that's not true. So I will share the problem. I'll just say this like straight up. The problem with sleep training research is there really isn't a great amount of good research, meaning like large randomized trials that have kind of years worth of data that any researcher, scientist, doctor can look at and actually prove that, to say like your baby doesn't trust you because you left them to cry. But there are good trials. I mean, there are good, there is good research out there, and 2 studies that came out recently. One that was done by Nanit. So the Nanit monitor that like everyone loves, raves about, they just came out with a study. And then Emily Oster, who's a researcher and an author, she just came out with like a really, really good study on sleep training. And basically the findings that they came up with were that it doesn't matter what age you sleep train. The ability to sleep train and teach your baby to sleep doesn't matter if you do it at 4 months, 12 months. There's no like perfect or right age. It can happen and you can make an impact and teach.
But they all agree that it should happen after 4 months, right?
Yeah. Starting after 16 weeks, because that is when your baby's sleep cycles change and they are now aligned to like our sleep cycle. So there's 4 sleep cycles. When a newborn, when a baby's a newborn, they only have 2. They're in a deep sleep and an active sleep. And that's it. When a baby goes through this 4-month sleep regression, they move to 4 stages of sleep. And that is when it is more difficult for them to put themselves back to sleep because they're working through much more active and light stages of sleep. And that is when it's completely fine to sleep train. So basically these 2 studies, the results were essentially people sleep train successfully at a number of ages, like wide range of ages. Parental presence doesn't always work as well as babies get older. So I think it was like 10 months and older. Parental presence wasn't as effective, meaning if a parent started sleep training and they were going in every 3, 5, 10 minutes, picking their baby up, trying to put them back down, their baby wasn't falling asleep. But if they left them and didn't go in, it was more effective. And the reason behind that is as your baby gets older, they're much more aware and alert, and it's more stimulating for them to see you and to be calm, like to actually be calm and try to fall asleep, back to sleep by your presence.
Yeah.
And then the third was just like what it did for the families, like the amount of research that showed how it saved lives, marriages, sanity, and mental health was like astounding. So there is those 2 studies that came out recently were really strong in terms of like the number of people that participated in them, the findings, and just the research to back it up. In terms of like the attachment kind of theory out there and that it like creates some sort of disattachment to parents or trust or abandonment issues, there's not anything out there that is good enough with research that anyone is willing to put their name behind it to say that that's true. So that's really the bottom line behind that like myth or theory.
So which is basically say like that's the biggest thing that I always take away from it is like the benefits from what we're finding. We're seeing like tangible benefits from it. And that's, I mean, I know anytime I've ever talked about it was like, and the messages, 90% of the messages are from women that are saying like, I had to sleep train. I tried to avoid it. And the moment I did, I became a better mother and a better human. Like, again, sleep is a crucial thing. Like for us in general, as people in general, when we are tired, we eat shittier, we work out less, we move our bodies less, our moods, forget like recovery, especially if you are trying to recover from birth, you're recovering for a long ass time. You are still, all of that stuff. It's immune system. All of this is just so important, that piece. And then also just think about like your mood and your fatigue. Like marriage, who the hell wants to have sex when you're exhausted? I don't.
Thank you.
Like, forget that. I don't, there's just so much, not that sex is needed, but you know the point. Like,
you want to do
like, you don't want to do any of that stuff that's supposed to be good for your well-being and your family's well-being. And, it's one of those things that the benefits far outweigh the potential negatives. And
there's 100%. And I'll just share like really quickly on some of these studies, because I do think it's helpful to hear the numbers. So like the NANET study recruited 4,000 families. So like it's a pretty big number. There's a very common, like, I guess I'll just say like a very common study out there with a lot of people who are anti-sleep training. And they always reference back to this study out there. And when you look at that study and what that person found when they did this research on sleep training, it was a study of 25 babies. So I would just say, like, for anyone out there, and my job, I feel, is to just share good, true, helpful information for people. If you are trying to figure out if sleep training is for you or not, just like do a little bit of research into the numbers and the data and the research that's out there on sleep training, because
that's the hard part. It's like all of the stuff. It's so hard to find good research that isn't not even that. It's just like find that research is hard, but then also just like find information. I remember I looked up once about sleep training and it made me so frustrated to read it because again, it all boils into this whole mom shaming thing, which I just can't stand. And it was some woman, she was a blogger. I don't even remember her name now, but she wrote a whole post from the baby's perspective, trying to write about how sad this baby is that you're leaving me in the crib and how terrible, like you read it and like, yeah, if I didn't know anything about sleep training, I would never sleep train because that literally just made you feel like a piece of shit for even thinking about sleep training. And it's not anyone that has any medical backing. She just feels she doesn't want to do it. And I always say to people, I'm like, again, I get frustrated with this stuff when people offer or when people are in messages and things like that, like on that reel that did well and whatever, people are saying that. And I'm like, some woman, actually, I'm going to find the comment because it was frustrating as shit to me. You totally get heated about this?
No, I don't.
I hate when I just don't like shaming. Like I don't like shaming, especially when people like to just.
Yeah, I mean, it should really just be.
People like to pass judgment and offer no tangible help. So if you don't want me to sleep train, are you offering to come over?
Yeah, and take my baby in the middle of the night.
And take my baby while I take a nap?
Yeah.
Then?
Exactly.
Are you going to get up with them during the middle of the night? Chances are, no, you're not. And if not, then shut up.
Yep.
Just how I feel. And if you don't want to sleep train, don't sleep train, but don't shit on people that want to.
Agreed. Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, and as you're looking for that, and you can attest to this too from your own experience, I feel like a lot of the questions and the controversy is really around the attachment piece and trust. And I will just say, like, I've never, and even with my own son, but like, I've never had a family say, we sleep trained and years later, like my child doesn't want to be near me or like doesn't want me or, anything like that. So to be honest, I think that kind of theory around it is just a crock of shit.
No, I think if my, if there's something I'm going to go back at my parents with being like, you guys screwed me up, it's
not going to be
definitely not from that time period. There's going to be
other things, but it's not going to be that.
Yeah, no. Let's see. Oh God, I need to find it because it was so annoying what this girl said. And I know I didn't delete it because it became like a big message stream. And if not, then I'm just going to pretend like I remember exactly verbatim what she said. But she said something along the lines of like selfish. Oh, I won't be able to find it.
I know. I was going to say, it's so
would pop up at the top.
Buried.
Well, and I thought it would be at the top considering it was kind of like, usually I feel like when it's a big conversation, usually it's popped at the top, but I guess not. Hold on, let me see. No, whatever. I just remember, so this woman commented saying that she understands that it is that women have to work now and things like that, but we chose to have babies. And because of that, we need to be at their every call. And for us to do so, it's just selfish. It's more about like a selfish, mentality. And I responded to her saying, it has nothing to do with selfishness. I said, it has to do with support. I said, like, yeah, we know that most women have gone into wanting to build a family. Most of us have gone into wanting to have a baby, and we're willing to take on everything that means. But one, we have no idea what to expect until we're in it. And two, the support is lacking. And that's what frustrated me. And some people were like applauding this woman's answer. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, that again, it's probably the same people that are just anti everything. And I was like, again, great, then don't sleep train your kids, but don't say it's a selfish thing. Like, and I honestly don't think if it is a selfish thing, that's a bad selfish thing to be. I would be happy to say I'm selfish.
Yeah.
I'm selfish about my sleep for a reason because my selfishness benefits
everyone else.
everyone.
And yourself. Yeah. Be selfish. I mean, yeah, I like what you said. It's not selfish. It's about support, and your selfishness is benefiting your child.
Yeah. We don't have the support. Again, if you're planning on coming over and being like my night doula or whatever they're called, and you want to come and wake up with my baby, awesome.
Yeah.
It's not like, or if you and your spouse are on the same page for, splitting shifts and things like that. Awesome. Go for it. If that works for you, if you want to co-sleep and you are fine doing your thing, awesome. If it's working for you, then great. But if it's not working for you, and by not working, meaning you're exhausted and your health is taking a hit and your mental health is taking a hit because of it, your marriage is taking a hit of it, it's not working.
No.
And that's when you need to revisit it, because it's not, again, like you said, it's not a badge of honor to be miserable and tired.
It's not a competition amongst us moms. Like, it should be just, we support whatever we want to do that we need, like what we need to be happy, healthy, and support ourselves and our families. Like, that's what people should do. And
it's like the mark of a good mom is like being a martyr.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's
like being a martyr.
Like, it's impossible. Yeah. I have so many moms who come to me, and they, like, last night I had a woman reach out to me in the middle of the night. And she was like, I'm sitting here with my baby, and she's 6 months old, and she's been up every 3 hours, and she's fed, she's changed. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm exhausted. I'm like losing my memory. I'm like, I can't do anything during the day. Like, please help me. And like, some people don't, but most people that come to me get to a point like that, like just pure exhaustion. And I wish that it didn't have to get to that extreme.
Exhaustion's scary. Exhaustion
but
is
it's okay.
Yeah. It's a scary thing. It's a really freaking scary thing. And I always say, like, there was a reel I did, and it went viral, and I'm so glad it did. Out of all the reels that I could have ever produced, I'm so glad that was the one that like decided to go viral, and it was the biggest tip for having a newborn. It made it when Haley was like only a few weeks old, and it was to put your baby down, even if they're crying, if you're frustrated or exhausted or anything like that, because walk away, put them somewhere safe and walk away, especially if you're having one of those nights, because like we were saying, crying is a really triggering thing. Crying's not fun. And it's just one of those where, and if you're exhausted and you are so tired, you're not in your right mind a lot of times. It really does get scary, and it's hard to imagine, especially if you're listening to this and you're not a parent and you haven't been there. Like, you're exhausted some nights, and you are still in charge of another human being. And that it's a responsibility that you can't just say like, I'll get to it tomorrow. Like, no, you have to get to it right now. And there are no breaks, essentially. I mean, is if you have support. Yeah. But if you don't, you're on your own, and you have to get through it. And if there's a moment that you are at all questioning your mindset while holding this baby, and you're getting frustrated and you're tired, put the baby down and please walk away. I don't care how hard that baby's crying. Just walk away, go take a few deep breaths, take a few minutes, and then get back at it, because it really does get scary sometimes when you're that tired.
No, that's good advice. It's very good advice. Yeah. And I think, and we can switch gears if you want to, but the last thing I'll share about this is like the lack of sleep for baby. Like, obviously it impacts the baby, but also impacts the mother. There are so many clients that I have who, once their babies are sleeping, they still message me and they're like, can you help me sleep? Like, I still can't sleep. It's not something that just like shuts off or goes away because you were waking up every 2 to 3 hours and then your baby starts sleeping for 9 hours. Parents and mothers like this is like detrimental. Like, this can last a long time. And it can take time for them to start to sleep and sleep better, even if their baby's sleeping. So,
well, even just with like nap times, like I've always been good, but thankfully my kids have always been pretty decent nappers where I can get good stretches out of them. But I know even they don't sleep in. I wish they would freaking sleep in. That is like the one wish I could change, because I thought about this the other night, because Kaylee's been waking up at, either she'll wake up once at night at 10:30, or lately she's been waking up at 5 a.m. and just ready to go. That's her thing. This morning, finally, Yeah. And I've been getting up with her because at some point I realized that she's just ready to go. Yeah. I'm hoping whatever. But this morning I could not get myself up and I turned off the monitor.
It's fine.
I turned it off. She wasn't crying. Like Kevin was already awake.
Yeah.
I heard her talking and I could tell that she was probably going to start whining for me to come in there. And Kevin was already awake and downstairs eating breakfast because he has to go to work. And I turned it off knowing that he could probably hear her and he would go up if she needed to be. But I was like, I'm going to let him handle this. And he never ended up getting her. And he came back in like at 6:20. So it wasn't long. No. And he came at 6:20 and he was like, he said, is Haley out? And I was like, I assume so. I said, she's crying. And he said she was crying a little bit, but then she went to bed. And I was like, good.
Yeah.
Good. Because I'm like, I need her to sleep. And maybe that was the thing to like put her back on schedule.
Yeah. The 5 to 6 a.m. hour is tough. Like that is like such a light stage of sleep. And it can take time for kids to just sleep through it instead of like waking up at 5. I have so many people, even my daughter, it took her a long time. Even still, she'll sometimes wake at like 5:30 and she'll just be like moaning, fussing. And I'm like, not ready. I'm not ready for you yet. And I leave her and she usually falls back to sleep. But a lot of kids like are in and out of sleep between 5 to 7. And that's okay. Like if your baby is up that time, you're not ready to get up and they're like just fussing, crying a little bit on and off, like leave them. It's okay. They're probably trying to go back to sleep. No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's what I had to because I was like, I could not even.
I cannot get up.
Some mornings I do. Yeah. Like I will get up. Yeah. It's been catching up with me. I think this morning I was like, I can't. I literally cannot. Yep. I actually this is how, and I talked about this on a podcast episode the other day. I was so tired because she's been doing this so consistently. The other morning, I said to Kev, I was like, this is it's not a normal thought, but it's a common thought. I was like, wouldn't it be nice if I fell down the stairs and broke my leg and bought myself a few days in the hospital so I could get some uninterrupted sleep? That's so fucked up. No, but I said that to Kevin. He was like, Mary, and I'm like, it's not anything. I'm not wishing it upon myself, but I'm kind of like,
it's just out there. It's just out there.
It's just like a little thought. I think, I don't know if you follow Diary of an Honest Mom, Libby.
Yeah.
She recently just shared something very similar saying like, wouldn't it be nice if you like got hit by a car?
Like terrible happening.
It's just like, I don't want to die. You just like
a
few days away where you have to be there. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
It's true though. Like you get to the point, like our family, my son came home with a stomach bug like 2 weeks ago. And I thought I dodged it and I didn't. And although I hate the stomach bug, it's the worst. No one else, my daughter didn't get it. My husband didn't get it. I got it. And I was like, it was like one day, I'm like 24 or 48 hours. I was like, I'm quarantined to a room.
Don't bother me.
Can't do anything. I was like, this kind of sucks because I'm like sick. But it wasn't the worst thing in the world. Like,
isn't it sad?
Yeah.
That's sad. It's sad. It's sad because that's literally what has to happen sometimes for us to like, get a second. Mm-hmm. A hospital wouldn't even be that great because the nurses would be coming in every 3 hours like they always do.
No one's bugging you.
I need a hotel room, but then I wouldn't even enjoy it. Again, hospital, I say hospital because at least you have to be there.
Right.
If I was at a hotel room, I'd feel guilty.
Right. And you'd be like, what am I going to do? I'm just sitting.
And then I wouldn't sleep because I'd be guilty. And that's just the messed up part about motherhood.
No, it's insane.
We don't win. Either we have to end up in the hospital because of an injury.
Or get the stomach bug.
Or get sick to actually get rest. That isn't really great rest.
It's not. Yeah. It's all back.
That we would accept.
Right. And then you're worrying the whole time. Like, did you feed them enough? Are you like, did you do this? It's just, it never stops.
Yeah.
It never stops.
No. All right. Well, let me look at my Instagram and see what questions. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Is it possible to get your 14-month-old to sleep through the night without crying it out?
So, they're going to cry. I can't, you don't have to leave them to cry all night, but they're probably going to cry or talk. Like if your 14-month-old is verbal and speaking words, they're going to speak or cry because that's how they respond. But there are lots of ways to get a 14-month-old to sleep that don't involve extinction. Like we talked about earlier, like just leaving them in there and shutting the door.
Yeah.
but there's always going to be some crying. If something is new that you're introducing, it's new to them. They're going to protest it a little bit until they understand what you're trying to teach them.
That's the thing. Is like crying does not, out of all of the times of day, like kids are going to cry because you took a toy away. Kids are going to cry because they don't like food. They're going to cry because they don't want a certain color cup. Like it's not necessarily because they're like being damaged. It's because they're a kid. Like, especially at that age, they're just going to put up a fight because they're a kid.
Right. And I always say, like, think about how many times you're in the car and your kid has been crying and you can't get to them. Like how long that has happened, like how long that period.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah.
Sucks. That's probably, give or take, however long your experience has been in the car with your kid crying, give or take how long it would be for them to fall asleep on their own if they've never done it, like to actually sleep train. So it's kind of the same. Like you can't, although with sleep training, you can get to them. You can be there with them.
Yeah, you could be there and you can go and comfort them.
In the car, when you're driving, like most of the time you can't. So people do let their kids cry.
Yeah. How the hell do I stop the suck to sleep? Is that nursing?
It's an interesting way to put it.
Might be them shortening it down. Suck to sleep association. Help.
Yeah. So basically you just have to
cut it,
move the feeding time up. So if your kid if you know they need to be asleep at 7 and you start nursing at 6:45, they're going to fall asleep on the boob. So start nursing at 6 or 6:15 and they will probably be sleepy, but they hopefully won't fall asleep as you're nursing. If they do fall asleep when you're nursing, unlatch, try to wake them up a little bit so that they're like, awake before you put them in their crib or wherever they're sleeping. If you do want to help them learn to fall asleep on their own.
Yeah, I need to. I mean, she doesn't fall asleep on me. She just wants to nurse before bed. Yeah. Although I've been having Kevin do it. Just put her to bed because she won't fight him. If I put her to bed and don't offer to nurse her,
she's upset.
Very upset. Yeah. So I almost at this point, because I'm trying to wean.
Yeah.
It's been very hard.
I know.
Not an easy process, but it's not going well. I've been breastfeeding her more than ever these days. So like totally backfired at this point, but it will happen at some point. She nurses at night, and you know what? It's honestly, it's like I said, I'm a lazy sleep trainer. I know it's going to get her back to bed,
and that's okay. Like,
and I'm in survival mode. I just can't with 3 kids right now. No. I'm like, whatever, I'll handle it at some point,
100%. And you will, and it'll stop, and it'll be fine, and you won't even remember it. Like that's the thing. I think a lot of people are like, with everything in parenting, I feel like you go through it. That wasn't even a big deal. Right now, it's a big deal, but like in a few months,
no, you won't remember. It's short. It's short. Okay. So when did you start sleep training? So someone's asking me that. I started lightly, like you said, sleep shaping. Yeah. So just like, room darkeners, although I actually didn't do that with my babies. I was like, I always put them asleep in a well-lit room because I needed to know that they would sleep anywhere in any condition. So I did that and we had the snoo. You don't need that. I don't feel like that made that much of a difference, especially with Haley. I don't feel like that's not anything you need. It was nice, but not needed. I just did that, like sound machines, watching their wake cue or their sleep cues and routine as best as I can. But again, routine isn't something that I'm like a stickler on. It's nice. Especially I'm a little bit more of a stickler now just because I need to know that like nap times are going to happen and I need to know that bedtime's going to happen because again, I have 3 kids. Yes. So I'm probably a little bit more routine at this point. But I just started that. And then I think at like 5 months, slowly, I started. But again, I'm very lazy this time. So it's not been hardcore where it's like, this is how it's going to be.
Every night. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I go with the flow. I give her time. My rule of thumb is if I hear her starting to fuss or cry, I give her like 2 minutes and see what happens. And majority of the time I can tell based off of the sound of her cry. Yeah. Like she has a different tone to her voice. Yeah. I know whether or not she will fall back to sleep or not. 9 out of 10 times she does not. So I go up there. Yep. And I'm too lazy. I don't want to wait. At this point, I'm like not in the mood to wait. So I just go up there and put her back down.
Yeah. It's quicker.
It is what it is. It's fine. How do you help transition from co-sleeping to a crib?
So that's a big one. It depends on really how old your child is. If they were a young infant, so like I will say 4 to 8 months, I would really just start to move them into the crib for naps. Get them comfortable in the crib. If you're going to keep, you can either move the crib into your room if you want them to be in a familiar space where they've been sleeping. Do it for naps for a few days. And once that's going okay, then I would do it for nights. And you can keep them in the crib next to your bed if you want to. If you want to move them out of your room completely, you can do that too. And just, again, kind of start that. You'll need to pick some sort of sleep training method. And what that means is like how you will put them to sleep and how you'll respond to them when they are trying to go to sleep and if they wake overnight. So that could either be this short check-ins, that could be sitting next to them until they fall asleep, that could be picking them up, putting them back down, whatever you're comfortable with. I have a blog post with like every sleep training method that is known to man. So hope if you go to my website.
Yeah, you should say, I'll share that with me after. I'll put all this stuff in the show notes. That way you guys can take a look at anything. Someone said, honestly, how the hell do you just start? I have a 5-month-old reflux baby that will not sleep unless she's being held by me. That's probably hard because of reflux.
Yeah. My daughter has reflux too. You just have to really work the feedings around when you need them to go to sleep. So a lot of times, like right now, Maisie can really only stay awake for like 90 minutes. So the second she wakes up, we feed her. She's bottle fed. I feed her. She sits up for like 45 minutes. She eats, she sits up, and then 45 minutes later, she's going back down. And she sometimes spits up in her sleep. And that's like, I know that scares people. That is okay. The way that their esophagus is designed and their throat, they will spit up to the side. Like they will not choke on their spit up. So it's doable. You have to really work the feedings around it.
No. Let's see. How old should a child be to stop waking in the night? My 4-year-old still does.
Yeah. I mean, every kid's different. I would say usually by 2 or 3. For toddler years, around 2, I would say they're obviously fully capable of sleeping through the night. They're capable of sleeping through the night well before that. If a child is waking overnight and they're usually between age 3 or 4, it's either due to being way overtired, having some sort of like fear, nightmare, some reason why they can't go back to sleep, or it's just toddlers being boundary pushers, which a lot of them are. Yeah. They start to learn how to like push the boundary. They want a parent to be with them. They know what to do and what to say to get that person in the room, and they know how to work it. So it's usually a couple of those things.
Spencer's been waking up, and that's not like him. He's been probably my best sleeper. Like he's Cassidy is a really good sleeper too, but Cassidy had a little bit more of like a night terror type of thing that she went through. So we went through a little bout of that. We found that tablets. So if anyone's listening and going through that, tablets, TVs, eliminate it an hour and a half before bedtime. It makes a huge difference. Sometimes it's hard. TVs will still keep. We just put on something calm.
Yes.
But anything that's like Cocomelon or like even Bluey. Bluey's great, but Bluey is so short and quick.
Yeah, it's like
the shows that jump and or stimulate. Get rid of that shit. Like put on like a Disney movie that's a little bit slower paced if you have to put on something. But I always found that was a big thing because I think it just like overstimulated their brains. Yeah. And then she was having weird dreams.
Oh yeah. And toddlers need I always tell parents, when you bring your kid, if your kid goes to school or even if not, start like winding your child down. If they're 2.5 or older, they need probably an hour and a half to 2 hours of like starting to wind down their mind, body down. Because it takes so much more time for them to just get in the mindset of going to sleep. So to your point, like eliminating or minimizing screens, trying to minimize like active play, watching like what they're eating and how close to bedtime they're eating and all of that. It just makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the big thing for us. I know for Spencer now, when he wakes up, he hasn't fought us really. The big thing he's really into is we roll up his shade a little bit and we say, wait for Mr. Sun. You can't get out of bed until Mr. Sun comes out, and he's all into that. So it works. Like I know there's like clocks and stuff that people buy. I know there's like red and green clocks or something that people buy that say like they glow different colors when you can get out of bed. So that might be something. And you could do like
okay to wake.
Kids are big on rewards. Yeah, kids are big on rewards. So maybe you just give them like a sticker chart or something.
Yeah, sticker charts work really well. Okay to wake clocks work really well. Incentives, like rewards, incentives, and consequences. It's hard, but like you take their favorite thing away. If they're waking up a million times overnight, coming into bed with you, and you take away the tablet or whatever it is, they're going to stop doing it. It's hard on us because it's easier to give it to them, but it will work.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you get your baby to fall asleep while still awake? Make sure that they're tired.
Yeah. Watch the wake window, make sure they're tired. And then again, you just have to start to put them down awake. You have to try it.
Yeah.
Like you just have to try it a few times. And when you start trying it, if you're going to start to put your baby down awake, give it a week. Like I know that sounds long, but give it a week, give it some time to try. And if you are not okay with it, if they don't seem to be making any progress, like if they're still taking an hour to fall asleep, then you can figure something else out. But once you start it, just start to try it and stick with it because they need consistency to like, try to
really figure it out. Yeah. Cause I mean, I put my kids down awake now. It's very rare for them to be asleep on me at this point, but I put them down, or babies like awake. I've always put Haley down awake. You just kind of again, Haley's very consistent. So I would pay attention to, like Molly's saying, like with their sleep cues and things like that, figure out what time they are awake and what time they're in bed. Like Haley's pretty good where she will take a nap anywhere between 2 and 3.5 hours after she wakes up. Yeah. She's pretty good. So like, I'm always like on days that the kids are both at school, I always get her up no later than 7 because I know that I can get her down by 9 if I need to. And that way I have the whole
morning.
Morning by myself, which is fabulous. It's going to suck the day that she gets rid of that nap.
I know. Ugh, don't worry about it.
No. Well, we're getting close. But I think that has helped because I know when we're getting up there and I know her cues because she gets very fussy. Mm-hmm. She just like all of a sudden doesn't want anything to do with anything. Yeah. And when I look at the clock, I'm like, oh, okay.
Must be 9.
That's what's going on. Yeah. And then I go bring her up and you put her down and you go through the whole workings. You could rock them for a little bit, read them a book or pick them up. And if they cry, give them a minute. Like you can make this. I always did like timed intervals, like where I said like, okay, I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. And after 3 minutes, if they're still crying or fussing, whatever it is, I go in, I take care of them, whether it's rubbing their chest, comforting them, picking them up, comforting them, holding them for a little bit, nursing them for a little bit if I need to, and then putting them back down, hopefully awake, and going through that entire thing. And you can extend that clock, but you can shorten that. You can wait 30 seconds. And go in and then come out and make it a minute and then wait and make it a minute and a half. Like you can make it as short or as long as you want it to be. There is no like whatever you feel comfortable with.
Exactly. And I think there's a misconception on this too. Like some people think they have to wait like 5, 10, you have to like increase the intervals as you go. Yeah. That is BS. The most important thing to do when you go in, if you're going to do intervals, is to be consistent. Babies want to know what you are expecting of them. So if you go in once and you pick them up and then you put them back down, and then the next day you decide, I'm just going to leave them to cry. And then the next day you go in and you nurse. They're like, what the F do you want from? Like, what is going on? I don't know what you want or what I'm doing here. So it doesn't matter how long you leave them. Just try to be consistent when you go into them of how you're going to respond to them. The other thing on cues, I know you mentioned like Haley has like cues. She has sleepy cues.
Yeah.
There are a lot of babies who don't have sleepy cues. Parents will be like, I know I'm supposed to put them down in 90 minutes, but like they're happy, they're on their mat, they're playing, they're fine. Still get them down for a nap. Like still try to get them down for a nap because some babies don't have sleepy cues, but there are still times throughout the day where babies have a dip in their, hormones, and they are tired and they are naturally tired. There are times throughout the day where they're just biologically tired and predisposed times. So even if your baby seems okay and they're happy, I guarantee you, if you start to bring them in their room, you turn the white noise on, you start to get them in the sleep sack, feed them, they're going to start to yawn and get tired because they are tired. Like that is a time that they are likely needing a nap and they just don't have those kind of like classic sleepy cues. So that's another one that's like kind of
interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I always say, that's what I do. Even if it's just because I need that quiet time in the morning, I'm like, well, whatever state you're in, go bye. Like, bye. I need below time. Guilt. How do you deal with it? Because you're doing it for you. I don't understand. Again, I think moms have gotten to the point of where we literally have been told that we aren't allowed to do anything for our benefit anymore. And you are allowed to say that you are doing this for yourself. I'm like, yes, you're doing this for your baby. Yeah. Sleep is a crucial thing for your baby. But if you are doing this for yourself, that is okay. Like, I don't know where this whole selfish selfless. Like this whole selfless thing is a crock of garbage.
Yeah. I was going to say,
garbage.
I don't feel guilt. Like, I'm sorry. I've never felt guilty. My son, I probably felt a little bit of guilt just because I didn't know anything. And then I didn't, but with me, I did not feel guilt with Maisie, like working on her sleep. I've been like looking forward to it and happy that she's sleeping. But I know a lot of parents that feel guilty because they don't want their babies to cry and they don't want them to feel like they're leaving them and all of that. But I guarantee you, like, if you start working on your baby's sleep and you are consistent, after 3 to 4 days when they start sleeping better, your guilt will start to go away.
Yeah. When you start seeing the results of how you're feeling and seeing how you're mothering and how you are as a person, like, and how your baby is, like, your baby's going to be happy too. Like, that's the thing. It's like, these babies are not miserable.
You're like, they're happy. They're eating better. Like, they're awesome. Like, yeah.
I mean, if you watch my stories, you should see how Haley wakes up after every nap. She's so happy. Yeah. Like, she's just the happiest kid when she wakes up. And I think about that. That doesn't, to me, it's not a sign of a baby that's sad that I'm, leaving her and having separation anxiety or anything like that. Like, it's just, I get the guilt. I get the guilt. I think the guilt comes from the misconception about sleep training. And people have been blasting this whole idea about sleep training and being like, your babies were inside of you and they were meant to be in their mother's arms and stuff like that. And I'm like, yes, they are. And they will be for all other hours of the days. When they're awake, they are my heart and my soul. But when they're asleep, they need to sleep because I have little heart when I'm tired. So do not feel guilty. 100%. Don't feel guilty, please, because you have nothing to feel guilty over.
You shouldn't.
Like
what? No, you shouldn't.
No, you're allowed to do it. Okay, let's see. How to lengthen half-hour naps. That's hard.
So it's hard. One of my like really good tricks is to again, you have to pick a method to respond to your baby, but to leave your baby an hour from when they fell asleep. So short naps are really common, or most naps start to lengthen by like 5 to 6 months. So if this baby, it sounds like a 30-minute nap is probably like a 4 or 5 month old. I would try to put your baby down awake. They're going to more likely be able to put themselves back to sleep when they wake up at that 30, 40-minute mark. That's when they're transitioning from deep sleep to like light sleep. So that's when they wake up. But leave them like an hour from when they fell asleep. So if they fell asleep at 9, they woke up at 9:30. You essentially want to leave them in their crib till 10 to kind of like indicate to them that this is your hour to sleep. You can go into them. You can do those like short intervals to go in, or you can leave them if they're not crying. But doing that consistently will help them lengthen their nap and also kind of signal to them that this is your nap time. We're teaching them to sleep longer than 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's kind of like that quiet time. Even with my kids, like Spencer doesn't really nap anymore, but I still, my sister-in-law, she's been really good at this. I don't think Spencer would probably tear apart his room if I let him do this, if he's not in there for napping. But my sister-in-law is really good about putting her kids in their bedroom. Mm-hmm. They don't really take naps anymore, but it's their quiet hour.
I love it.
It's just, and she needs it. She needs it. Yeah. Everyone needs it, but she does it, and they are great. And I think it just sets the tone for, hey, this is, you got however much time I'm giving you, go enjoy it.
Yeah. Totally.
Do what you want. Let's see. Tips for moving a 4-month-old into the same room as a 4-year-old.
Yeah. So a lot of people room share. I've worked with a lot of families who room share. You really want, before you move them, you want to make sure that they're both sleeping well. So if your 4-month-old is sleeping well, and that's okay if they wake up a couple of times a night to eat or whatever. But you don't want them to be waking up every like 2 hours, because that's likely going to disrupt the 4-year-old's sleep. Try to make their sides of the room separate if you can. I highly recommend the Slumber Pod, which is like that black like canopy, blackout thing that goes over. It can go over a pack and play, a bassinet, a crib, because that just helps kind of separate the spaces. Double up on white noise. Each side of the room can have one. And if it's a lot of the concern is usually around like putting them to bed. I would imagine the 4-month-old might be going down a little bit earlier than your 4-year-old, potentially. So that's fine. If you need to do your 4-year-old's bedtime routine outside the bedroom and then just put them in, that's fine. Your 4-month-old probably won't wake up when you put your 4-year-old to bed. Like if you have white noise on and they're in a different corner of the room, you're likely okay, unless your 4-year-old is like screaming. So white noise.
Yeah. Lots of white noise.
Yeah, lots and lots.
That's how Spencer, we have 2 next to his head because his wall, Haley's crib is right next to the wall that conjoins his room. Yeah. And I know that he'll be able to hear her. So I like blast it by his head. That way he doesn't wake up.
People always ask me, they always ask me like this, how loud it can go. So it's technically supposed to be 60 decibels. So there's like apps you can download. It's usually like 3/4 of the way up, or mine actually goes all the way up, and you want to go where the baby is sleeping. So you turn your white noise up, you put it against the wall where you're trying to block the sound, download one of these decibel apps and turn the white noise on, and you go to where your baby is and it'll tell you how many decibels it is. So 60 is like the safe range.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I didn't do any of that. So
usually it's like, it can go all the way up, but people get very worried about hearing loss. So I would.
Yeah. Well, oops. At this point, let's see. They'll be fine. Maybe that's why they don't pay attention to me, because they can't hear me. You never know. Let's see. A lot of them are saying like, how do you get your baby to fall asleep?
Yeah.
Gotta pick your method. My 15-month-old still wakes up 3 to 4 times a night. My heart can't take the cried out method. Is there anything else I can do?
Yes, you pick a more gentle method, which means you can be in the room. I can't guarantee that that's going to make them cry less, to be honest. Like that's just some babies, even seeing a parent makes them cry more.
That's how Cassidy was.
Yeah. So I would pick a more gentle method. That could mean sitting next to their crib until they fall asleep, putting your hand on their back and just sitting there, leaving, coming back in every time and doing that when they wake up. It's a more gentle method. It's a method that involves more parental presence. It can take a little bit longer, and it takes a lot of willpower from the parent to do it. But it works. Like it works. I've worked with tons of families, like 18 months to 3 years old, where that method works well because they want a parent, or they've been sleeping with a parent, or they've been waking up a lot overnight. And so the parent's sitting there until they fall asleep, and then slowly removing themselves from the room gives the child some comfort knowing the parent is there, and then comes back when they wake up.
Yeah, that was my friend did that. My friend had a baby right before I had Cassidy. Yeah, and they did share like a chair. I think I said that she did her chair, but she I think the chair started right next to the bed, and then every day, I think she said it took a while because she was like adamant, but she stuck to it. And I think I want to say she said it took like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
like almost because she moved it slowly back.
Yeah. It can take 2 weeks, and usually like you kind of have to gauge how it's going. Like if your kid's falling asleep really well and you've moved to like they're halfway from like their crib to the doorway and they fell asleep within 10 minutes, then I wouldn't the next night like stay in the same spot. I would then go to the doorway, like keep moving out of the room and talk to them about it. Even if their baby is 15 months old and they might not understand it, they actually comprehend a lot more than you think. So if you say to them like, mommy's sitting right next to you, you're going to go to sleep on your own, I'm right here, I'll come back if you wake up, and you repeat a consistent phrase, they start to learn and understand that, and they'll remember that. So it works. It just takes a lot of willpower.
Yeah. So there's ways. Again, you don't have to make your baby cry. Trust me. No one wants their babies to be upset. No mom, any mom that does do the cried out method, trust me, my kids have cried themselves to sleep. I'm fully transparent about it. Do I like it? No. It's a whole like office quote. Do I do it? Yeah, I do sometimes because I have to.
Yeah.
I have to. And if it's the method that has worked sometimes best for me, but there are plenty of times that, especially like I said with Haley, she doesn't go very long. She maybe gets 2 minutes and then I'm like, okay, bye, let's go. And I can stomach it. The girl has had to cry multiple times because she's the third.
It happens.
Third fiddle. Let's see. My 11-month-old has always gone to sleep independently, but doesn't stay asleep. No sleep associations, probably.
So So there's probably something off with the daytime schedule then, I would have to imagine, daytime or feedings. So make sure they're still feeding. At 11 months, like obviously, most likely they're having solid food. So I know a lot of people start to do more solids than they do breast milk or formula, which is fine, but that should still technically be their main source of nutrition throughout the day. And likely something's off with the schedule. So if your 11-month-old is napping twice a day, they should be going to sleep around 3 to 3.5 hours after they're waking up from that second nap. That could mean if they're waking up at 3, then they're in bed at 6:30, which a lot of people, that like scares people. A lot of people are like, but I want them to go to bed at 7:30. I get it. But like, wouldn't you rather they stay asleep all night instead of stretching them and getting them overtired? So most overnight wake ups are due to overtiredness. So I would just really try to work on their day schedule and getting them to bed at an age appropriate time.
Maybe I should try that. I'm going to focus on a 3-hour schedule.
Yeah.
Because I forget what she's at right now. All right. I'm going to have to get her up early tomorrow then. Damn it. Because I want her to sleep when the kids are gone. It is what it is. Okay. Well, I think that all of them are pretty much the same, but let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, like pacifier, dropping a pacifier. That's hard.
It is hard.
That I had to do that with Cassidy. Yeah. Getting rid of pacifiers for nap and bedtime. I didn't get rid of Cassidy's pacifier until she was closer to 3.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was 3. I let it go because again, she was having great sleep and I didn't want to mess with something like I don't want to, don't fix what isn't broke type of thing, but she needed to because it was just affects their teeth. And we even just got instructed with Spencer because Spencer sucks his thumb that he has to stop trying to suck his thumb by a pediatrician because you could see it. Like you can see that shape of his teeth. And I'm like, oh, Kev has been pretty good with it where he's like, I came upstairs last weekend. I was recording something and I came upstairs and I could smell vinegar. And I was like, what is that? And he was like, I dipped his thumbs in vinegar. And I was like, Kevin. He's like, what? And I'm like, oh. I was like, you know what? I'm sorry I mentioned anything to you because the pediatric dentist was not like, it has to end now. Yeah. He just mentioned like, maybe we should start working on it.
Yeah.
And Kevin now took this and is running with it. But he was just like, well, he just can't do it during the day. He could do it at night. And I'm like, okay, well,
that's hard.
Let's go easy on this, man. And I said, you also have to go slow on this because I'm currently trying to get Haley to stop weaning. And that's like an emotional thing or to start weaning. And I said, that's emotional. Now you're going to cut him off of his thumb. The thing that makes him look like a baby. Yeah. I'm like, stop it. Like one thing at a time for me.
I cannot handle more. I cannot.
No, I can't. No. So I was like, we got to just chill on that front right now.
I think there's some sort of theory out there that's like, do it before they're 7 months or like after 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
Either way, it's tough.
Hey, he just came in. Hey, what's up? Kev. She's up? Oh, okay.
Good timing.
Good timing. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap it up because
duty calls.
I have to go duty calls. I'm assuming he probably even tried going in there usually. And he can go in and get her down. But what time is it?
Give it a whirl.
It's early. Oh, come on, child. It's not even 9 yet. Well, that's all right. Anyhow, I will link all of this information from Molly's blog and everything in the show notes. And I'll put all of Molly's information if you guys want to check her out on her Instagram or sleep consulting, anything like that, and have her work with you. I would suggest it. Again, you have nothing to be ashamed of, guilty for, any of that, for wanting good sleep for yourself and for your baby, because sleep is, if sleep weren't important, we wouldn't focus on it so much.
No, exactly. So, it's crucial. So thank you for having me. This was fun.
Of course.
And
of course.
Please feel free to reach out. Any questions anybody has, I'm happy to help. So
perfect.
Thank you. Good luck with Haley.
Thank you. Yeah. Another episode down and way more to go. But thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to help support this podcast, I would love for you to subscribe. I'd love for you to share it with others and post about it on your own social media or leave a rating and review. I cannot tell you how helpful and how appreciated those things are for me. Of course, to catch all the latest from me, you can follow me over on Instagram at The Very Merry Life, over on TikTok, The Very Merry Life. And even if you wanted to check out my monthly newsletter, you can do so by subscribing over at theverymerrylife.com. I'll see you next week. Stay tuned for more honest, raw, real chit chat. I have some amazing moms lined up coming on, and shit's going to get fun. So buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be good.